Okay, folks, we're going to talk about how to something cuss in comics today. And you can tell by the no on the ID badge the guy's holding up that I was not particularly fond of this example of cussing in comics. This comes from Wildcats, the current version from DC, #1. And Cole Cash, the grifter, is being asked, impressive, where did you get this ID? And he says, my local something. And I got to tell you, I struggled with this. I mean, even knowing where he got it from on account of the context of the story, I had a hard time trying to figure out what this is because, basically it's referring to a dive bar. But looking at that word, I'm like, okay, just what the heck does that thing mean? And it's not like this is the first time that this has happened to me. I mean, as far back as 1993 in Pit #1 by Dale Keown, you've got a woman who says, this really throws a something into my day. And I swear to this day, I do not know what cuss word is supposed to be a synonym for monkey wrench. I just don't know. I even tweeted at Dale Keown one time asking him to clear this up for me because I have no idea what that word is. There's no word that I know that can go there. So I posed the same challenge and said on Twitter and said, from Wildcats #1, I see comics writers are still taking the lazy route of making their characters seem edgy by putting cussing symbols in places that make no sense. Seriously, what word goes there? What word can? And editors are too lazy and afraid to say, do better. And I actually called out the writer, Matthew Rosenberg, and the editor, Ben Abernathy, hoping to get a response. And I did. I had a feeling that there was probably a better than 1 in 3 chance that there actually was a word that could fit into there. And sure enough, there was. And the word, according to Matthew Rosenberg, who is the authority having written this scene, is shithole. Now, before I go any further on this, I want to say I take the L because I asked the question, what word goes there? What word can? And he had an answer. That absolutely does go there. But I still have a problem with the word, of course, because when you look at shithole, do you really think that that translates into this 3-character representation? When I see a 3-character representation of a cuss word, I'm thinking you're either going to mean a 3-character cuss word like ass or tit, neither of which fits in here, my local ass, my local tit. That's not going to work. Or you're dealing with something that at most is probably going to be 5 letters long. It's going to be one of those standard cuss words. And there actually is one that fits in there a little bit. You could say my local hell, but it would make more sense to say my local hellhole or my local shithole. And with a word that's so small as the 3-character representation, you would think they could at least tack the word hole onto it so that people would have a better understanding. And I did push back with that. And I said, so that hole, if you want the reader to understand it. And Matthew Rosenberg replied, it's bad form to hyphenate the curse and non curse part of a word, so we can't do that. Now, the way he writes, we can't do that, and it's bad form, I mean, is there actually a Strunk and Wagnall's dictionary list of how we do things in the comic book business that defines how these words get translated into cuss words? Because if there is, oh my God, I want a copy of it. Please, somebody send me a PDF. I would love to see something that says, hey, welcome to DC Comics. Here's the link if you want to get your HR all straightened away. And if you're going to cuss in your comics, here are our Strunk and Wagnall's guides to doing that. No, it's Strunk and White. It's Funk and Wagnall's for the dictionary. So, yeah, if there's a style guide that the big two use, I mean, my God, please send a copy of that my way because I would love to know just why, or really if, they really do say, okay, don't hyphenate curse words and, don't try and split up curse and non curse parts of a word, etc., etc. But I'm just thinking, okay, look, I mean, you don't have to hyphenate it. You could just, put the punctuation where it needs to be and leave whole alone. But maybe they don't like that either. I don't know. Anyway, Matthew Rosenberg continued, but it's a reference to a line from a few panels earlier where another character refers to the bar by the same curse, so the reader can get the sentence from context clues. Well, I knew that it was a dive bar that was being referred to, and I know that shithole is a synonym for dive bar. The problem was really that three characters of weird punctuation does not represent shithole to me. And it doesn't even really represent shithole in the book either, because this is that panel. Um, you've got the word down here at the bottom, which isn't even the same word as was used in the original panel that I cited. So we're actually looking at two different words, or an abbreviated form of the word used earlier. And I don't know if unless it's whole, if this refers to whole and that refers to shithole. Um, and then the other thing is that previously in the comic, you've got two instances where shit is clearly the word meant, and it's a word that's repeated twice in the same panel, so you know he's using the same pronunciate or the same punctuation structure to represent the same word, and it's not either of these words. So, context to me is driving it off as to saying I can't necessarily tell anything from any of these words. Now, again, I take the L because I did ask the question, what could go there? And Matthew Rosenberg provided an answer. And by the way, he was a gentleman throughout the conversation. I applaud him for that. He could have very easily lost his temper or his patience, and he did not do so. So, kudos to you, Matthew Rosenberg, and I wish you the best on your endeavors, including Wildcats. Now, all of this is leading me into a discussion of how to cuss in comics in the first place, because I think it's something that is rarely addressed. And there are several degrees that writers have used over the years to cuss in comics. And if you look at degrees being first being worst, kind of like murder, well, then first degree cussing would be outright cussing. There goes my outfit, shot to shit. Then you've got concealed cussing, and that's when you're bringing in the punctuation for use instead of the actual word. There goes my outfit, shot to. It's supposed to be static as opposed to actually representing the word. Although, if you've got the colloquial expression down, then you already know what that is. One level down cussing. There goes my outfit, shot to crap, or maybe shot to hell, or something like that, where you're basically taking a lighter cuss word that people are more willing to accept and putting it in place of the actual offensive cuss word. Then you've got pseudo cussing, and this was more popular in the 70s and 80s, where you had expressions like, there goes my outfit, shot to spit. You actually had these kind of folksy colloquialism substitutes that you used for cussing. And then, of course, there's no cussing at all. There goes my outfit, it's completely shot. So, what are examples of all these different degrees of cussing? Well, if you're going to go for first degree cussing, then why not go for the vulgarity par excellence of The Boys by Garth Ennis? And here you can see him dropping some F-bombs, and it's entirely appropriate, because especially when you consider the ultra-violence being displayed. Yes, that is actually someone's ripped-off face sliding down the window. And when you know that you've got, either over-the-top violence or explicit nudity, say in Rini Strachowski's Fiendish #1, where you have Tits McGee with her boob hanging out, then you can go ahead and swear in this book all you like. You have already made this an adults-only, suggested for mature readers book. Now, I would advise you to be cautious about making this choice, though, because as I've said in the preview review that I did for Fiendish #1, R-rated movies on average return about half in sales from the box office as PG and PG-13 movies. So be very careful when deciding to make an adult-oriented comic, because you are cutting yourself off from a significant portion of your audience base. I wouldn't advise it unless that's just how the book has to go. Now, on the second degree of concealed cussing, you need look no further than the book at hand, which is Wildcats #1 from DC. And here we have a scene in which I forget his name, Jacob Metcalf, I want to say, is cussing out one of his employees and saying, "How about you buy your own building, and then you tell me what the I can do in it," after being told he can't smoke in the building. So, what does this actually buy us? I mean, this is an example where, swearing is acceptable. It's an ages 13 plus book, so you assume you're writing to teenage level. But at the same time, they don't want you putting the actual cuss words in the book because that'd put you in more of a mature reader's block. So now you've got all these little cuss words in here, and of course they're in no way consistent with one another. If you're doing "how about you buy your own king building," I assume there's an ing in there somewhere. Is it represented by the star in the middle of the word? Is that how punctuation language works, that a star in the middle is an ing at the end? And then, even though you would think that the last word that's being covered up by punctuation is the same as the previous two words, it's spelled totally differently. So I don't know what the heck is going on as far as which words are being used in here. And you know what? This all wastes time. It wastes time and energy that the reader could be using to read your book. I mean, one of the things that I have been constantly saying, it's kind of a constant refrain, whether it's in my ISOM reviews or in my other comics reviews, because Cyberfrog, etc., is that if there's something you are doing that adds to the reader's processing, where the reader has to spend extra energy to process what it is you're trying to get across, you're failing the reader at that point. You should be making your ideas as accessible to the reader as you possibly can. And I think this is something that I learned from the realm of stand up comedy because Dennis Leary, the actor and comedian, famous for Rescue Me and more recently as being Gwen Stacy's ill-fated dad in The Amazing Spider-Man, he um, he had a routine back in 1993 called No Cure for Cancer. It was a comedy routine that was wildly successful on Showtime. It had to be on Showtime because it was just absolutely laced through with profanity. I mean, he was punching you in the face with swear words practically the entire time. Now, it just so happened that on Comedy Central, there was a special in which Dennis Leary appeared where he was not in a venue where swearing was allowed. So he was telling some of the same jokes from his routine No Cure for Cancer as on the Showtime special, but he was doing it without all the profanity. And you know what? It was 10 times funnier. 10 times funnier. I was practically crying laughing because I wasn't constantly being punched in the face. I could just embrace all the humor that he was throwing my way. And I look at this particular these particular sentences from Wildcats, and I think the same thing. It's like, "You can't smoke that in here, sir." "Well, how about you buy your own building, then you tell me what I can do in it?" How is that not just as funny as what this guy is saying with all the staticky cuss words thrown in? So I don't find much utility in this other than to punch the reader in the face and really in the brain, because you're having to overtax your reader's brain to process these swear words which don't have any real pronunciation key or translation key to them. We saw that just with the original example. Now, the third and fourth degrees of cussing are probably best exemplified by the Marvel comic book The Defenders from 1972. The writer in that case was David Kraft, and for the third degree, which was basically doing a one level down cussing, he had an example like, "Hulk's madder than heck and he's not going to take it anymore." Well, that's kind of a modified, toned down quote from the Network movie saying, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." And then you had a couple of the folksy pseudo cussing type examples of cussing, where one of the characters says either "spit or get off the spot," which is an obvious reference to "shit or get off the pot." And then you also have tough ditty, said the kitty, which is naturally tough titty, said the kitty. Are these kinds of cussing examples useful? I don't really find them to be so. And the reason being is that if you're an adult who knows these original expressions, you're going to find these off-putting, and they're very tortured attempts to capture the meaning of the original while still being kid safe. It's like this would be like if a Warner Brothers cartoon did its dual level thing wrong. You know, Warner Brothers cartoons are kind of written so that they're written for both adults and for children at the same time. It's just that the children are not getting the jokes from the from the higher level stuff that they're putting forward to the adults. This feels more like they're doing it wrong. It's not. It doesn't feel sophisticated. It doesn't feel natural, and it's going to be off-putting to the adults and the kids. You know, the kids might accept it and say, okay, you know, they don't know any better. If they did, like for example, shot to spit was not. I had never, when I had read that as a child, I had never heard the expression shot to shit. So it made no difference to me. To me, shot to spit was the actual expression, and when I used it in front of my parents, they got a good laugh out of that. So these kinds of pseudo cussing and one level down cussing, I mean, they're torturous to the adult ears, and I wouldn't necessarily use those either. And then, of course, we have the last degree where there's no cussing whatsoever, and we've got plenty of successful examples of that. The big two put them out all the time, and not just in their kids' friendly comics, it's in their regular comics as well. So, with all these degrees of cussing that are available, the only two that I really see as being worthy of being in comics are the outright cussing and then the no cussing. So, it's really a matter of knowing what your audience is going to be. Are you going to be writing for an adult audience, or are you going to be writing for a child audience? In the case of Wildcats, you've got ages 13 plus. You know you're writing for children. You may as well leave the cussing out because it doesn't really add anything to the book. And then if you know that you're getting a chance at an adult book, you're writing for adults, you're not expecting kids to be in the mix, well, then you have a choice. You can either go for the no cussing route or you can go for the outright cussing route if that's what you really need. But those are really the only two acceptable kinds of cussing that I would find in a book, because otherwise you're either just making the reader's brain work too hard to interpret your punctuation, or you're torturing your reader with watered down versions of the things that the reader knows very well. So that is my discourse on how to cuss in comics, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Mike Partika. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I will talk to you later.